Hi and welcome. Today I'll be teaching you about contractions. So, you may be asking me, what are contractions? So, contractions are words that are used to make a sentence shorter and more convenient and easier to say. Words like I'm or I'll or we've. Now, let's move on to the first person contractions. The first person is when you're talking about yourself. So I or we if you're in a group. Now let's look at the contractions for I. I has four contractions. They are I plus am, which gives I'm, I plus will, which gives I'll, I plus have, which gives I've, and I plus would gives I'd. So if I were to use these in a sentence, I will do my homework. So instead of saying I will, I can shorten the sentence by making it I'll do my homework. Now let's move on to the contractions for we. We also has four contractions. We plus are giving where, we plus will giving will, we plus have giving we've, and we plus would giving we'd. So now if we were to use these in a sentence again, we would say we are playing tomorrow. So instead of saying we are, we can replace that with where. Now let's move on to the second person contractions. Second person is when you are talking to another person. So words such as you or you all. So you has again four contractions. They are you plus are giving your, you plus will giving you'll, you plus have giving you've, and you plus would giving you'd. Now, if we were to use this in a sentence, you can say, you have done this. So instead of saying you have, you can make it you've done this. Now, let's move on to the third person. Third person is when you're talking about something else entirely. So words like he, she, or it are in the third person. Now, let's look at the contractions for he. He plus is gives he's, he plus will gives he'll, he plus has gives he's, and he plus would gives he'd. So if we were to use these in a sentence, we can say he would play, but he is hurt. So instead of saying he would at the start of the sentence, wouldn't it be much shorter if we just said he'd play, but he is injured? Now let's move on to she. She again has four contractions. She is gives she's, she will gives she'll, she has gives she's, and she would gives she'd. Next, let's move on to the contractions for it. It again has four contractions. It is gives its, it will gives it'll, it has gives its, and it would gives it'd. So now if we use this in a sentence, I can say it will make sense. Now we can remove it will and put it with it'll. So that makes the sentence shorter and it saves space and it's easier to say. Now let's revise what we have learned. The first person contractions for I are I'm, I'll, I've, and I'd. The contractions for we are where, we'll, we've, we'd. Now the second person contractions. The contractions for you are gives your, you will gives you'll, you have gives you've, and you would gives you. Now the third person contractions. The contractions for he are he's, he'll, he's, and he'd. The contractions for she are she's, she'll, she's, and she'd. And finally, the contractions for it are it's, it'll, its, and it'd. So that's it for now, and I hope you understood.